And go.
Good afternoon. Thank you for listening to My God Moment. My name is Debora Cook, and as many of you know, I'm an artist, and I travel around to various venues to do demonstrating as well as selling my own artwork. And late last October, I was on my way down to a place called Historic Rock Castle, where I was contracted to work with children for a Thursday and a Friday. And then I was also scheduled at another venue up in Ohio, where I would turn around and leave there and come up to Eastern Ohio to a place called Schönbrunn Village. So this was going to be an involved trip. I had gassed up the car, checked everything out, everything was packed, and I got on my way. Unfortunately, it was after teaching a class at the Xenia Library, so I was getting started a little bit later than I liked, but it was a direct trip down to just north of Nashville in Tennessee. I got on the road, started down I-675. I was heading for I-75. Got close to Centerville, Ohio, and I started noticing my radio cutting out, and the car made odd noises. By the time I got into very close to I-75, the car was just running very, very rough. I managed to get off of I-75 right there in Centerville and limped into a car repair place. I went in, told them the problem, and the mechanic looked at the car, said, "It's the battery." When he said it was the battery, I said, "Are you sure it's the battery? The battery is not that old. It could be the alternator. Did you check the alternator?" "Oh, yes, we checked the alternator. Everything is fine. We're sure it's the battery." Okay, they put the battery in. He came back, said the car was all ready to go. Everything was fine. One more time, I said, "Are you sure? Did you check the alternator?" "Yes, everything is good. You can get on the road." And I had explained that I was going to be traveling into Tennessee. I was not going to get there until fairly late at night. Got on my way. Car was acting fine. Plenty of power. I noticed no roughness in the car. Got on I-75 South, went straight through Cincinnati, and from Cincinnati I made it into northern Kentucky and took the branch off for I-71 heading toward Louisville, Kentucky, and then I would take a road south into Nashville. It was dark. It was very, very dark. The sun had already gone down. I got halfway in between Cincinnati and Louisville, and the car started acting exactly the same. The radio cut out, and then there was a print on the printout where the radio is. It said, "No power, check battery." Well, this was a battery that was 2 hours old from just up in Centerville, Ohio. The car sounded worse and worse, and eventually I noticed I had no light on the inside of the car and no light on the outside of the car. I had no headlights, no dashboard lights. There was no way to see, and it was dark. And if you know I-71, you know that route is very windy and very hilly. And it got darker and darker. And then eventually the only way I could see to keep myself on the road was to have cars and trucks come up right behind me, and I could see with their headlights what was going on and where I was. Well, after being passed by at least one truck who was honking at me, I'm sure I had to swerve to get out of his way. Once he passed, that was it, pure black. My prayer antenna were up. I was praying constantly, keep me safe, keep me on the road, get me off this road. It was like a mantra that I kept repeating over and over to myself. And then somehow, some way, the words, "read the road," was instantly in my brain. I can't explain it. I have no way to tell exactly where it came from, but the words were very specific, "read the road." What occurred to me is, Lord, this is not a great time for a Bible study. This is not a time to be reading anything. And the words came again. And I'm in constant prayer, not knowing where any edges were, not knowing where lines were. Read the road. And then it occurred to me, as I'm thinking I'm driving blind. And then the word blind occurred to me. When you are blind, you read Braille. And you read Braille with feeling bumps on a page. I realized there is grooved pavement to the right side of every white line on the roads all over this country. And I realized if I eased my car to the right side, eventually I could feel the bumps just to the right side of that white line. Now, I didn't want to try to just ease off because there can be a car or a truck that was dead that I could not see. I could not see any reflections from anything. So I got onto that line of bumps and literally drove until I saw lights on the right-hand side. Actually, it was on the right and the left-hand side. Realized that I had just passed an exit sign and was able to pull off with the car running extremely rough. To this day, I don't know how that car stayed running. I got off, turned into a motel, got in, parked the car, and it was completely dead. Nothing, not a single sound when I turned the key off and then tried it one more time. Not a sound. Got out of the car, went into the motel, went up to the desk, tried to get a room. And I was told, I don't know, ma'am, I think we're full up, but I can try. There's a convention here. I said, well, where am I? Well, you're in, and it was a very small town in LaGrange, Kentucky. LaGrange, Kentucky. And she said, we're having a convention here in town. And again, I remember thinking, who has a convention in LaGrange, Kentucky? But there was one. She looked in her computer and told me, we have one room left. So I was able to check into that room, went through the night. I had called the person at the place I was supposed to be, left her a message that I would call her the next morning and bring her up to date. Went down the next morning to the front desk again, explained my problem to the person who was then behind the desk. And I said, I've got AAA. I can, where can I have the car towed to have it fixed? Well, he told me about a place just across the freeway. I could have the car towed there. And he said, I wouldn't even try AAA. You're pretty far away from Louisville, and by the time they got here, it's going to be well after 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and you're just not going to be able to get in there quickly. Did you notice there's a tow truck right out behind the motel? This gentleman that was with the tow truck works for the Kentucky State Department of Police. And he happened to be there working with a group that he does their mechanics. And he also goes around and tows their, vehicles when they need to be towed. He called up to his room, brought him down. He and I both went out to my car, opened the hood, and he connected his testing gear to the battery. Obviously it was dead, but also connected it to the alternator. And he said, ma'am, you're getting nothing from your alternator. So all those questions I asked about it being the alternator was interesting. So the car was towed to the place that he had mentioned. I was treated very, very kindly. Was able to call the place that I was supposed to be at, let them know that I would not make it. After talking with her and deciding there's not enough time for me to come down, get set up, and go through, just only one day. We decided I would just fix the car, go back to Ohio, and then continue to go up to the event that would be for the rest of the weekend. Now, I learned 3 things with this event, and that is, number 1, I was never alone. I never felt alone. I never thought I was not being taken care of. I just had to keep my prayers going in the correct direction. Number 2, you can never stop problem solving. God's going to give you help, but you can't just pull back and throw your hands up. You have to work with what information you're given and then continue to do your own problem solving that will get you to a safe place that has already been planned. And number 3, coincidences are interesting. And on the way home, from that weekend, it's usually too late for me to go home and cook on a Sunday evening when I'm coming home from these events. And I knew that there was a Chinese restaurant that was open, that's in Xenia. Stopped, picked up my dinner, and took it home. And I was opening everything up, and I rarely eat the dinner first and the cookie last. I'll go straight to the fortune cookie. And that fortune cookie stated that, I have it right here, faithless is the person who quits when the road darkens. And that's my God moment. Thank you.